Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and in this video, I'm going to share with you what we know so far about the social type number 3 or the specialist. In this video, we're going to cover the traits and behaviors of the social type number 3, their saviors and demons, the crosschecks and life pile, their pitfalls, their strengths, their cognitive dissonance, social type number 3 from the community, good number 3s versus bad number 3s, being so good in one area, what bothers me about social type number 3s, social type number 3 growth path, and conclusion. So what are the social type number 3's traits and behaviors? The social type number 3 seeks to specialize in one area. They seek routine, they seek security and stability, they seek structure, they are ego-driven in that one area and wants prizes, incentives, gold stars, compliments, credits, and recognition for their work. They are amazing in that one area with extremely high level of craftsmanship or service. They are responsible for one area but are hesitant, apprehensive, and even resistant or refuse to help in other areas. They are motivated by positive reinforcement, and to them, the boss is to be challenged and tend to target number 2s for not appreciating them enough. Social type number 3 is tied to the blast animal, which takes the organizing function, either introvert sensing or introvert intuition, to really hone in on organize their known information and craft it before presenting it to the tribe. What are the social type 3 saviors and demons? Well, their first savior is obviously social type number 3, which is seeking to specialize in one area, focus on routine, work-life balance, and be the best at a specific role or niche. Their second savior is social type number 1, which is seeking to gain status, to flex by showing off or bragging, to win, to achieve, to be the best. They tend to have a big ego and have identity goals. The minor demon of social type number 3 is social type number 4, which involves seeking friendship, moving and caring for other people, building genuine connections, and focusing on family and togetherness. And finally, their major demon is social type number 2, which is seeking to gain independence. Other traits of social type number 2s includes being responsible, tend to be the jack of all trades but master of none, interested in entrepreneurship or management, and being results oriented. Here are the social type number 3 cross checks. First, you need to examine your life pile and see what you've actually done, not what you want but what actually is. So if you've been doing the same role or job for many years without pivoting to another job or role, then you're most likely a number 3. Social type number 3 have a tendency to either dress well or dress to stand out and get attention. As mentioned, social type number 3 has the need to stand out and gain attention from others and have a tendency to take free money or gifts from other people. One of the weaker cross checks for social type number 3 is their love language, which is gifts. And they like to take gifts as a way to feel valued by the tribe. Their second weaker cross check is words of affirmation to pump up their ego and their need to be recognized for being the best at their specialized or niche role. What are the pitfalls of social type number 3? Because social type number 3 take hyper responsibility for just that one area, the tribe can see them as unhelpful and selfish. This will result in tribe hate, and the number 3s, especially those who are consumed last, won't be able to see how they come across to the tribe and will think they are actually the victim instead of actually being the bad guy. Social type number 3 tend to get offended easily or take things too seriously. They tend to be complaint machines, especially towards bosses and coworkers. They may become helpless if their area of focus becomes obsolete and they end up being unable to pivot to something else. What are the strengths of the social type number 3s? Their biggest strength is being the best at that one area. For example, those in the medical field who specializes in a specific role in medicine become the best at that one area. They have high endurance to doing one type of work and really master it for a long time. They will take the time to master the craft by any means necessary, including sacrificing the tribe or other responsibilities. Next, we're going to cover the cognitive dissonance of the social type number 3. Social type number 3 is correlated with the blast animal. If you are a social type number 3 and you have double activated consume or have consume savior, you will feel a cognitive dissonance because you may want to channel change and take in something new when all you actually want to do is focus on that one thing, perfect it until you are the best in that one area. As a result, you're getting distracted from your actual goal, which will cause internal frustration in yourself. Next, I'm gonna show you examples of social type number 3s from the community. Now, since we just finished discussing the cognitive dissonance between social types and the animal stack, the first community member is an interview that I did with Shannon, who is an ENFP, NEFI, consume, play, sleep, blast, double feminine. And the interesting thing about her is that none of her savior animals is correlated with any of her savior social type. And all her savior social type is correlated with her demon animals. So as a result, Shannon is in a permanent state of cognitive dissonance, causing stress in her life. And you can even see it in the reaction during our interview. The way they describe each animal and as it correlates to the social type is consume is tied to being a number 2, and play is tied to being a number 4, and then sleep is tied to being a number 1, and blast is tied to being a number 3. So your stack is out of whack. it's gonna drive you crazy having all this opposite happening at one time. You don't even have a single savior animal that touches your savior socials, like nothing. Like,
Yeah.
but for you, it's completely the opposite. And
Yeah.
like you're blast last and you're specialist. What the hell's going on here? Like, so I can just see yourself like pulling your hair out, just like
Oh,
just being Shannon essentially, because there's so much contradiction happening at one time, right?
yes. Yes. Like that actually, it makes sense.
The next community member example I'd like to show you is Lindsay. Everyone knows her as Lijo. She's a fellow YouTuber. And the interesting thing about Lindsay, who is officially typed as an INTJ, NITE, blast, play, sleep, consume, feminine, masculine, is that she is working as a manager despite the fact that she is a social type number 3. In our interview, you'll see how she's approaching the role of being a manager as this specific social type. Well, that's the interesting thing because you are a 3, so you're supposed to be a specialist, but then you're doing the role of a 2, which is kind of like more managerial. Do you feel any cognitive dissonance in that?
So though I am a manager, I'm like an anti-manager because the way that I look at things is like everyone's an adult, they should be able to manage themselves. And if they can't manage themselves, they shouldn't be working with me. So I much go to the side of like, I'm, you know of like you hear of like the manager who's like the micromanager and they're like looking over everyone's. I could not be farther from that person because I don't have time and nor do I have interest in doing anyone else's job other than what I have to do because I've already taken on usually like bigger, deeper, longer, more cognitive heavy projects that is very, very hard for me to turn my attention away from to like look over someone's shoulder. So though I am a manager, it's like I have the system in place that kind of lets everyone know what they need to do and they just follow the structure and then everyone's good. So yes, and I don't think I could do a managerial role that had more like day-to-day kind of feedback, if that makes sense.
The final community member that I want to show you as an example is Greg, who is an INFJ, NIFE, blast, sleep, consume, play, double feminine. And the good thing about Greg is he is absolutely pretty much the pure blood social tree as you can get. I did an interview with him and I recommend you watch the full interview if you're really interested in learning what the life of a social type 3 is like. But in this video example, you can see what his demeanor is like working as a social type number 3 chef. So social type number 3s are what's called a specialist, and specialist individuals really take a lot of pride in their craft to make sure that it's as perfect as possible. So honing all the fine details, and good enough is not good enough. It has to be really good or close to perfection, if not perfection. So can you share a little bit about that from your experience?
Well, yeah, now it flows right out of me now. Yeah, that is all correct. I would seek perfection. And what I find is that, well, I never get there. So it's kind of frustrating, but that, I have to know that people have enjoyed it. Otherwise, it's a complete disaster. Whether it was mediocre or good, it's not good enough. And when I was happiest, I think, well, not happiest, but I had a career going where I was the chef of a large hotel restaurant in Virginia Beach on the beach, literally. And we would do a lot of volume. And I would do large events on this ship. Sometimes it was private. One night it was literally the Republican senators from the U.S. and their wives, and so there were 150 dignitaries. There were bomb sniffing dogs all over the. And I'm doing ice sculptures, and I was literally we had a small dumbwaiter on the elevator. I mean on the ship because there were 3 levels, and it broke. So I had an ice sculpture that was in the freezer that had to go 2 floors up, and it takes a lot time to do it, but you're moving in it. It's over 150, 200 pounds. I mean, and so I'm walking it up the stairs with someone else, and my boss asked me, "What are you doing?" And I like lost it on her because I was so focused on having everything perfect. I didn't care what my boss was saying to me. I just had to have this happen. And I was cursing at her. I could have lost my job. But it was really the fact that I knew this had to happen and this had to happen now for everything to come off. She was talking to one of my sous chefs who I'd worked with before, and I was fairly new to the job. She asked him, is he always like this? And he said, oh, he's in a good mood today. I was yelling and screaming and a lot of F-bombs and all kinds of stuff. And it got there, the meal went off, everything was fine, but I can get so laser focused that I can't hear or see or don't care what other people are trying to tell me. And that's, I don't know, I don't like that. I mean, looking back on it, that was not Greg at his best.
Right.
If I could have just said, excuse me, let me get this darn ice sculpture up the stairs in place, then you can ask me a question.
Right.
I couldn't do both.
So is that an advice that you would give to your younger self, is to pay attention more to other people instead of hyper-focusing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Next, we're going to cover examples of good number threes versus bad number threes. A good example of a good social type number three is Jordan Peterson, who is an ENTP, NETI, consume, play, blast, sleep, double feminine. Now, I'm not saying Jordan Peterson is a saint. He's a flawed human being just like anyone else, but I think he has more good than bad. And I think his message is overall very good, especially for those that has responsibility as a demon. So in this video example, you can see Jordan Peterson explaining to the interviewer that everyone has a hard life, and no matter what, the answer to any difficult situation is always going to be responsibility, even if the situation is unfair.
But how do you give a personal responsibility message while taking account that for some people it's harder to take personal responsibility and the deck is stacked against them?
Well, I think the deck is stacked against everyone to some degree because life is very difficult and we all die. But some people do have it harder than others. And all of us have it very hard at some times in our lives. It's like, well, what's the alternative? You take responsibility for that and try to struggle uphill because the alternative makes everything worse. It's not like it's fair. I know perfectly well that people have brutal lives. I've been a psychotherapist for 20 years. I've seen things you can't imagine, horror shows that you can't fathom, and people who have been hurt in so many ways, so many dimensions. Should they be bitter? Should they be resentful? Should they become violent? These things don't help. They have to struggle uphill despite their excess burden, and it's responsibility.
I've been looking for a bad social type number three to give you guys as an example for what they're like, and I'm so glad Dave and Shan made a video on Tia because she is the perfect example of a very toxic, irresponsible social type number three. So for this video, just for context, she's complaining to her sister Tamara about not being a part of the whole bridesmaids thing during her wedding, and basically, long story short, she not only was not proactive during the whole process of Tamara's wedding, she was also 2 hours late for her sister's wedding, which is absurd because if you really care about someone, then you would plan ahead and make sure that they are there for their special day. Instead, this person, Tia, turns this whole situation and makes it about herself, totally gaslights her sister Tamara, and takes zero responsibility whatsoever for her actions. And you know what the crazy thing is? Tia is supposed to be tribe above self. She is an ESTP jumper, SE, play, consume, sleep, blast, double feminine.
How would you feel if I went into labor and you had to hear through the grapevine that I went into labor? You would feel excluded.
For one, you wouldn't have to feel that way because I would be by your side no matter what.
And for me, the reason why I was feeling okay, you weren't there and I didn't question it, is because honestly, Tia, throughout the entire wedding process, you were nowhere to be found.
That was definitely a guilty look on her face, as you can see just now.
You are crying. How am I selfish? Because you just don't get it. You don't get it right now. So you're this upset about it. The fact that I have to explain to you why I was upset because you were late.
You're saying that I'm
see.
selfish.
Yes. The thing is you don't care. You think about yourself.
Now, personally, because I'm a social type number two, I think people like this are the most toxic kinds of people to be around. And this video hits home for me because I have family members that act like this and I have cut them out from my life. And it's been the best decision ever because these people are energy vampires. And I know Dave and Shan made a video at the end of the class for Tia showing that, oh, she's now redeemed herself. And I would call bullshit on that because just because she did one thing that seems like it's good, if you really put a magnifying glass to the situation, the thing that she did, which is divorce her husband, was still for herself. Oh, what a surprise. So at the end of the day, she's still selfish and she is the perfect example for a bad number three. Next, we're gonna cover the pros and cons of being so good in one area for the social type number three. The example I want to provide in this next video example is a pizzeria called Una Pizza Napolitana, and it's a pizzeria in New York. York. And back in 2022, it was ranked the #1 pizzeria in the entire world. So it's insane how high level you can be in one niche if you focus on that specific work for so many years.
I've been making dough throughout every part of my life. I've been married, divorced, had a child, both parents passed away. And the one consistency through that life to this point is that every week you know where I'll be. This is where I feel my best and what my purpose in life is. My goal is not to open 10 restaurants. My goal is to have one restaurant and keep making it better and better and better. If you spend 30 years of your life doing something, you're gonna start to find your own voice within that. It's like a real gift in a sense to be like doing the same work for 30 years and be like, this is so exciting. I can't wait to try to make today better because I'm not stopping. I'm gonna keep fighting to be good till I drop dead.
So as you can see from this example from this individual who's been running this pizzeria for 30 plus years, the obvious cons of being a specialist is it sounds like his relationships has been neglected as a result of focusing on his craft. But the biggest pros, besides the accolades that comes with being the #1 pizzeria in the entire world, is that he always has something to look forward to, which is honing the craft day in and day out. So the good thing about being a specialist is that you'll always have an area that you're passionate about and you can look forward to regardless of how things are happening in your life. Next, I'm going to talk about what bothers me about social type number 3s. And for me, what really bothers me about social type number 3s is the fact that they are complaint machines. They're always complaining about something, and if they're forced to take responsibility for that other area outside of their niche, they start complaining even more, as if they're the only ones that's taking responsibility for that one area. Everyone is responsible for everything in their life, not just in one area. Now, as of making this video, I am living outside Canada for 1 year with the sole purpose of being a specialist in regards to just focusing 100% on my YouTube channel. And what I learned is that when I am taking on the specialization role, even though I'm a number 2, I am experiencing a lot of things that the number 3s are experiencing, such as when you're hyper focused on doing one thing, you just wish that someone would take care of everything else. And I do see myself getting frustrated when I'm being distracted by outside sources, such as having to deal with a tribe, or having to do errands, or having to go to the gym, or anything else that distracts me from doing the task at hand. So I can empathize with the number 3s with the frustration, and I can see why they would be complaining a lot. However, that doesn't justify the complaining at the same time, because that's not how life works. In life, you are responsible for making sure other parts of your life doesn't fall apart, and you are responsible for getting along with other people. But at the very least, I can understand where that frustration is coming from. So I just want to share a very positive experience I had dealing with a social type number 3 that is hyper responsible for their craft. So basically, as of making this video, roughly a week or 2 ago, I was in Iran and I got stranded. On my way out of the country, when I got to the airport, it turns out my flight was actually canceled and I did not receive any notification whatsoever. So I was scared because obviously I'm in Iran, there's sanctions, I can't take money out and I can't use my credit card. So how am I gonna book a flight out of this country? Well, my guide at this place is actually a social type number 3. It was super obvious right from the get-go when I was talking to him because he is friendly, but he's not personable. He's very professional at his job, he's really good, and for me it was really obvious to see what his animal stack was also. He was a sleep, blast, play, consume. He was a horrible listener, but also really good at blasting. He was high flex and he was very particular about things about his job, especially when he's explaining about the sides, the outfit that he's wearing, and he also had things problem as opposed to people problem. But the one thing that I did notice about him was when I did get stranded in Iran, he took me to the airport around midnight and he stayed up with me the entire night in the airport trying to figure out how I was gonna get out of the country. And honestly, we didn't find a solution up until like 7 a.m. in the morning when we discovered there was one more seat left at an Iranian airline carrier to fly me out going from the city I was in all the way to Dubai. And the fact that this guy already clocked out and his only job was to take me to the airport, the fact that he went out of his way to really help me find a way out of the country showed how much dedication he had at being a guide for tourists in Iran. And I think this is the special power of the social type number 3 is that yes, they don't want to be responsible for anything outside of their area of expertise, but if you are under that area that they have responsibility responsibility over for. They are very hyper responsible for taking care of you and making sure that you're gonna be okay. And ultimately, they're not doing it for you, they're doing it for themselves because they have so much pride in their craft that for them, it's unthinkable to half-ass their job. So in this guy's case, it's because he is a guide for tourists in Iran, but I'm pretty sure the same case applies for other social type number 3s in other areas of jurisdiction. Next, we're gonna cover the growth path for the social type number 3. In my opinion, social type number 3s need to shadow each department in the company that they work for at least once a year, including their managers and supervisors, just to get an idea on how everyone does their job. As a result, this will help the social type number 3 do an even better job at their own work because they'll have empathy for what the other people in the company that they work for is going through, and they'll be able to provide even more value to their coworkers, managers, and supervisors. Social type number 3s also need to learn from the social type number 2s on how to take responsibility for everything in their life, not just in one area, because ultimately, if you're only good in one area and everything else is falling apart, then you're not really as successful as you'd like to be. And at the same time, that feeling of being helpless in other areas will definitely take a toll on your mental health. So in conclusion, social type number 3s is really important in any major organization because the social type number 3s are the best at those specific areas. So if you're going to get some kind of surgery in the hospital, don't you want to have a specialist in that one area who's been doing it for so many years and knows all the ins and outs of that one specific area to do the surgery on you? Exactly, because you can trust that person to really take care of you in that one area and provide you with the best value. Social type number 3s exist in many major industries. The best food you've eaten is probably made by the number 3. The best electronics and gadgets was probably made by a number 3. And everything of the best, usually of a specific area, was made by a number 3. And we wouldn't have all these amazing things or service if the social type number 3 did not exist. And I do think it's important to follow the 80-20 rule in life. So if you're a social type number 3, do go spend time on your craft, but don't neglect other responsibilities as well. And you don't need to do a great job at the other responsibilities. You only need to get a passing grade. That way, the other parts of your life are not falling apart because you spent all your time and attention in just one thing. That's about it for what we know so far about the social type number 3s. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.